Good afternoon, and thank you for joining this session where we will be having a gentle prod at the various funding opportunities and incentives there are for funding animation, whether that's as a new entrant to the sector and you might be looking for some cash to produce your first short, or packaging up a major animated TV series or feature film. My name is Julian Scott. I'm a consultant to Film London, the capital screen agency, where my consultancy role is to take the lead on animation for the organisation. If you don't already know Film London, the elevator pitch is that we support talent, develop creativity and promote London as a global production hub in film, television, animation, games and beyond. In my own area of animation, we recently developed and released an animation strategy for London after consultation with all major stakeholders. And probably unsurprisingly, funding was one of the biggest issues raised. To join me in some fund prodding, I have 4 people with knowledge and expertise about where to find money and how to get your hands on it. Firstly, Maggie Ellis. Maggie is a colleague of mine at Film London, where she's head of Film London's Artist Moving Image Network, or FLAMIN, a department that commissions artists' films in short and long form. She runs a prestigious annual Jarman Award, tours work nationally and internationally, and has a development program for emerging artist filmmakers. She commissions animations from very early career animators. Maggie's been in the film and television industry for 30 years and has benefited from the experience of working in a variety of roles. She's been executive producer of an Arts Council and Channel 4's Animate scheme, and is on the board of Sheffield Media and Exhibition Centre, and a member of Cine Regio, a European network of film funders. Moving on to Anna Mansi. Anna's the head of certification at the BFI. She works very closely with key stakeholders in government and across the screen sectors to provide advice and guidance on the application process for cultural tests, co-production treaties and policies relating to all the creative sector tax reliefs for film, high-end television, animation, children's television and video games. Anna regularly speaks on panels at conferences and events to promote the tax reliefs, such as the Children's Media Conference, Develop Games Conference and many others. In addition, Anna has organised BFI-led seminars and events for all the screen sectors. She's in the GI Biz 100 Women in the UK games industry, and Anna is a trustee for the video games industry's charity Games Aid and an ambassador for Autistica Play, the video games arm of the charity Autistica. Also a patron for Safe in Our World, the video games industry mental health charity, member of BAFTA, the Production Guild of Great Britain and Women in Film and Television. Annabel Grundy. Annabel is the project fund manager for the UK Global Screen Fund. She joined the BFI in March 2021 from a role overseeing UK-wide major programmes for BFI Film Audience Network. Working in film since 2002, her past experience spans audience development, film festival production and cinema exhibition in the UK and Australia. She's worked with British Council, UK Film Council, Screen Skills in a variety of sector development and funder roles. As project manager for the Global Skills Fund, Screen Fund even. She works across all open funding strands, assessing the financial viability of projects and ensuring the fund meets its commitments. Finally, Andrew Baker. Andrew is Chief Executive Officer of Cantilever Media and an award-winning producer and executive producer. He's currently in production on a CGI animated feature based on Terry Pratchett's award-winning book, The Amazing Maurice, which has been written by Terry Rossio, who also wrote Shrek, Pirates of the Caribbean, and stars Hugh Laurie, Amelia Clark, David Thewlis, Hamish Patel, Gemma Arterton. Gosh, you got some names here, Andrew. Marion Bakar and David Tennant. That last one was easy, which is a co-production with Ulysses Film Production in Germany. Andrew co-founded Kids Cave Entertainment in 2014, which developed, funded and co-produced Robozuna, which was a 40 times 30-minute CGI animated series for Netflix and CITV with ITV Global. After successfully selling his stake in Kids Cave, Andrew founded Cantilever Media, a film and TV production company to produce animated and live-action children's and family projects in television as well as documentaries. He also, because he's got so much spare time, consults for New York media for law firm Smith Den and was previously founder of the UK's largest business affairs consultancy, Rights TV, and head of business affairs at ITV Kids. So that's our panel. So a bit of a prod. Maggie, if I could start with you, please, could you just quickly run us through both the FLAMIN organisation and the BFI network that Film London runs?
Yeah, sure. Anyway, nice to meet you all. And I think I should start with the BFI network, because I don't work for the BFI network, and you couldn't get anybody today to join us, Julian. So just a little bit about them. It's, excuse me from reading it off the page. It's very, well, it's beautifully run by Joe Cadaret and Aila. I always pronounce her name wrong, Alia. And they have 2 rounds a year of funding for narrative shorts. And that includes animation as well as fiction and live action. They pay £15,000 if you're selected for up to a 15-minute program. And they'll be open for applications again in spring. So I'd advise you to check the Film London site for all the information on that and guidelines, but they also do some fabulous information talks and case studies. So do check them out. They're really worth getting in touch with. And after Chris, they're so very, very busy at the moment reading the applications. They're inundated with applications, and they're reading at the moment. So it will open again in spring when they've gone through this round. But they support directors based in England, and it's run in partnership with the BFI network execs, and those are Joe and Aliyah. Who also work with the filmmakers on a one-to-one basis, and they really help to develop their work and to, are with them all the way through production, offering labs and workshops and so on. So the shortest film so far, you can go up to 15 minutes. The shortest one's been an animation of 6 to 7 minutes by the director, Jenny Wright. And she's got a great team of people behind her, a writer-producer, Jake Cunningham, sound designer, Ben Goodall, and composer, Anthony Ing. And it's a 6 to 7 minute animation called Blue Bottle. So I'd really advise you to look at that, because you'll get an idea of the sort of animation that's been selected. I think that's all I can say without going into deep water and saying something which is wrong. But I must say that they're very welcoming of short animations, and they'd love to encourage animations from you guys out there. So do look at the details and do apply to them. As far as I'm concerned, I run Flame In. A lot of people call us Flam In, but it is Flame In. And we fund a variety of things. I've got about 5 areas of work. The very newest scheme that I started running as a pilot, really, in 2021 is for Black identifying animators, because they're so unacknowledged within the business and there's so few people out there, that we want to create, a pool and a network of people who will be ambassadors for the future and get the word out. I've got 4 fabulous animators. It's for very, very early career people, sort of probably 19 to 25, and they're probably on their very first or second animation after college. Although I must say, not everybody goes to art school or university to learn their skills. A lot of them are learning from YouTube, and you don't have to be, as far as I'm concerned, have gone through any formal education process to apply. So we'll be running that again. It's very tiny budget. You've started at the end of the smallest budgets, Julian. So for this, I've got 4 people, each on £2,500. It's very much a development scheme, out of which comes a small production of no more than 3 minutes, sometimes just 1 minute. And the whole point behind it is to create a network to introduce them to people like Netflix and Nexus and Passion and other companies, as well as other independent filmmakers. And from being at LIAF before, I know that there's a lot of you out there who are independently making your own work, a part of that independent sector, and have a job, both making your own authored work, but often work in the commercial industry as well. And then the whole panoply of jobs that are in the animation industry. So some people teach, some people do painting and decorating, some people work in commercials, some people work on music videos. But you always have to, at this stage in your career, unless you're jolly lucky, you know, be working on something outside of your authored work. And I know a lot of you are independent filmmakers and are looking just for small amounts. So you can always get in touch with me or my team. We're a very small team, just 5 of us, and that includes a freelance production advisor after Christmas. And we'll talk to you if you phone in and want any more information about that. But we'll be advertising that scheme for Black identifying animators in probably end of January, beginning of February. Very fast turnaround. We don't expect you to access great equipment. We want you to work on ambitious ideas, want you to experiment. We don't mind if you take risks and you don't come up with the most perfect piece of work. It's a small amount of money for you to take a little bit of time, take some risks and experiment in form and content. So that's one thing. Then the next stage up is an early career fund that I've got called Flaming Fellowship. And we take 6 people each year, and they're about 5 years of practice behind them. And it's very much a training through production workshop, and lasts for a year. And they make something usually, but they don't have to use the 2,500 that they get, which includes all the workshops and a variety of other things and meetings. But that's for them to use as they choose fit, to either do more research, to meet people, to have some additional mentoring. We provide mentoring as well on that. And all of them want to make something. So they often do some crowdfunding. They find other sources, like the Elephant Trust is a place you can go to. They usually put 2,000 or 3,000 into things if they select you, but they get little bits of money from all over. And one of the successes last year, Joseph Wilson, has made a beautiful piece of work that's got into the Rotterdam Film Festival. It's been picked up by a whole load of people and was on the big screen, the big wraparound screen in Piccadilly Circus, Piccadilly Lights. I can't go all into it, but there's a fabulous group called Circa who use that screen every night of the year, just at 8 o'clock, 8:20, 8:21. And they show things for about 3 minutes by artists. Joseph was picked up by them, had some money, I'd say it was about 4,000, something like that. His work was shown on the screen as the class of 21. And it was all the graduates and newbies from that year. And he was the winner out of 1,000 people. And he got most excited, not just by the money, which he got £30,000, which is a lovely amount for somebody to have, but because Marina Abramovich was on screen saying, and the winner is Joseph Wilson. And that was the most important thing to him. He keeps talking about it. But he's also got into Rotterdam. So with these small amounts of money, what I'm saying is you can use it as a springboard to raise other amounts of money. You can find in kind stuff, you can get deals, we can negotiate for you. And we want you to be ambitious, but we want you to do something feasible as well. You know, don't go for the latest camera or the latest gadget, because we're interested in ideas and your concepts and how you do that, something with them. And they always do more than anticipated. The next stage up from that, which we've just closed the deadline on, is mid-career artist filmmakers. And we choose 2 or 3 per annum, and each person gets £30,000. There's about a 6-month development period, and then they go into production. And I suppose the production takes over around, it can be for anything up to around 20 minutes plus. So some people have made long form work. 40 minutes seems to keep coming around. Artists have wanted to make longer work all the time, but we've had a feature, we've had 40 minutes, 30 minutes. We work with some fantastic people who are just tippling over into greater recognition and raise money all over the place, not only from this country, but also internationally. So Yasmina Civic, for instance, has, I think her budget was about, not big for what she's made, at the 20-minute, incredibly 25 minutes, incredibly ambitious piece for about 110,000. So you can use that money and, you know, build it up for something, you know, for something larger. And then we do the Jarman Award, which people are nominated for. And we don't choose. We've got about 100, 200 nominators. Names are put into the hat. We have a jury. We don't make the decision who the winner is. And this year it was Yasmina Civic. It's a bit embarrassing because it's part of our funding commission, but in fact, we don't choose. We've got a really fabulous jury from the business. And just profiling the work brings money in. So if you guys can get your work in festivals, on platforms, you know, pop-up platforms, online, whatever, your profile will increase and people will start looking at your work more seriously. I would say in terms of finance, I think, and then we do all sorts of advice and help people with writing applications. So that's very important in terms of fundraising, because you don't just cut and paste. You have to use what you've got, but make it different for everybody that you apply to. So the important people for us are the Arts Council England, who give Flame its core funding. And then other money comes in. We're supported by Film London. We have access to all the departments in Film London, the Equal Access Network Archive, audience development, locations department. So we can pass that on to the filmmakers. But it's the Arts Council England that we get core finance from, and they've got two areas that I'd advise you to look at. One is an area called Develop Your Creative Practice, which you can apply for, and it's up to £10,000. And it's not for making a piece, it's for testing your concept. It's for perhaps talking to people, buying books, thinking time. Development is so important. So thinking time. And then the other one that they've got, which they've increased the funding for, is called the Project Awards, and that goes up to 100,000. Now, if you go for something very high, then it's going to take longer for the turnaround, depending what your schedule is. So if you go for a large amount, say more than 30,000, for instance, then it could take a few months. If you go for a smaller amount, 10, 12, 15, 20, it's more like an 8-week turnaround. So check the guidelines. Lots of people apply to these things, don't check the guidelines and come a cropper at the first step. You know, they just don't read the frequently asked questions or anything. So I think, you know, what I'd say about funding is that is so important to do your research and so on. And then other people that I think you should look at are animate projects. So Abigail, and I always forget Abigail's surname, Addison, and Gary from the British Council. Why do Gary Thomas and from the British Council run animate projects? And that's got some fantastic work if you look at their website. Small amounts, but really good work. Then apart from that, I would be thinking about festivals that have, you know, markets, finance markets, depending on what stage you are in your career, and putting forward yourself for that. And if you get selected, you get to meet lots of people from business, from financiers and so on. And they get to know you, they might like your work, they might put you in touch with companies that will put money into your work. So I could carry on, but that's me. That's me, and I'm very
Maggie, thank you very much. That's so comprehensive, and I was quite deliberate in asking you to go first because I think it's quite important for people who are coming into the industry, or as you said, maybe looking to do stuff on their own for the first time, to understand where these pockets of money are. And I think it's sort of a bit of a misunderstanding that sometimes people think that there isn't funding available from London. There is. You just need to know where to go, where to find it, who to speak to, and as you say, how to apply for it properly. And I have put three links, which I hope have made their way through to the general chat for the audience so they can see, which includes BFI Network, Flame In, and the Jarman Award. And what I would say to people is, if you've got any questions about this, as people in the audience as we're going along, if you want to post your questions in the chat at your end, they should make their way through to us and we'll be able to answer them if we can.
There was something important that I did forget to say about BFI Network and Flame In. BFI Network doesn't do documentaries. DocSoc does documentaries at the BFI. Flame In is very hybrid. We do mainly the work is for galleries and museums. It goes online, it goes to festivals, auditoriums, and it is shown on outdoor screens. But we'll take anything, you know, with anything, whether it's animation, whether it's fiction or documentary or anything in between. And a lot of you people out there will probably do manipulated image work and combine that with animation and with live action. We're interested in all those forms. So we do, you know, across the board. And the Games Festival, which I should have mentioned, because you know about this, Anna, is in April of this year, and they've got a finance market as well. So lots of animators work across games and authored work. So check that out. It's a really good event.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Maggie. If I can just move on to Annabel Grundy, please, from Global Screen Fund. Annabel, would you mind just taking us through the various funding opportunities that come through your good self?
Yeah, sure. First, thanks for having me, and also well done to everyone who's tuned into this panel. It might be quite boring, but I always think it's good to be proactive and also to be aware of all of the different funding streams that are out there. I always say to people, even if a fund isn't relevant for you now, it might be in future, so you're going to be ahead of the game by attending events like this one. So forgive me, I'm going to do a bit of the spiel of UK Global Screen Fund. So we are a new fund. We're funded by the Department for Culture, Media and Sport and delivered by the BFI. So we're actually not lottery money and not Arts Council money. We are taxpayers' money, Treasury money, and therefore we have a much more commercial focus than lots of the other public funds that are out there. Our remit is very, very international. We're interested in building the revenue, reach and partnerships of the UK screen sector, and that includes animation. I think the two most relevant funding streams that we've run in our pilot year will be the co-production strand, which is self-explanatory. We've funded co-productions across film and television, and that's been a way that we've been supporting UK producers to board international co-productions. And we have supported some animations out of that. We actually have an announcement coming next week, so I'm not able to talk about the projects that we funded, apart from the actual first award we made, which was to a Northern Irish company called 16 South, and we funded them for an animation series called The Coop Troop, which is a 52-part series co-produced with France and China. And it looks amazing, so I'm really excited about these things actually coming out into the world and people seeing them. The specifics of the co-production strand are that we would invest up to £300,000 into international co-productions. Like I said, it's been open very broadly, so we've been open to both film and television. And there are different criteria depending on what you're applying for and the format of the production and the structure of the co-production. So we've been very flexible because we've been open to unofficial and official co-productions, and we've been open to film and television, and we've been open to minority and majority production. But all of those different structures have slightly different restrictions around them. And I don't think I'm going to go through all of them on this call, but if people have specific questions, please put them in the chat. And the maximum amount that we would put into any single project in this pilot year was £300,000. I've just noticed I'm using was and the past tense because our funding strands for this year have closed, but I can confirm that we have been renewed. So UK Global Screen Fund has secured money in the last spending review. There was £42 million allocated towards the screen sector by the government. we're waiting to know exactly what the shape of that is going to look like, and we're not the only fund or the only project that's coming out of that envelope, but we will be announcing more detail, hopefully in the early new year, and hopefully continuing to support similar kinds of projects. Tell me if I'm going too fast, because I get a bit nervous talking quickly. The other strand that I think is most relevant to this call is our international business development strand. So this was quite different to project funding, and we've put money into companies to develop international growth strategies. And that's been very heavily subscribed because it was open to all of the different screen sectors. So we have supported games companies, film, television, and of course, animation out of that. It's been really interesting looking at the range of applications that have come in and the different ways that people have wanted to grow their business. So for example, even in animation, there's been quite a wide range of pitches to us from people wanting to develop and acquire IP or intellectual property, and to have a slate of upcoming productions that they have targeted international markets for, to other companies who actually have existing content or product but have wanted to come to us for localization funding, because animation is scalable and very easy to redub and to sell to another international market. So that's been really interesting to see. And the business development funding has been up to £200,000 over a 3-year period. And again, I can't give you any more specifics because we are imminently going to announce the range of companies that we've supported. But it's been quite heartening to see the level of interest in the fund, the level of international ambition right across the screen sector, and also the number of applications we had from animation companies, which has been really strong. We also have 1/3 funding strand, which is currently still open, and that's our international sales and distribution strand. This is open to primarily film, and we support sales agents to sell UK films internationally. So that can be a completed film or a packaged film, or it can be a pre-sale film. So we actually have supported a couple of animation projects at early stage and helped the sales agents take those to market. I think we have previously announced that we supported Kensuke's Kingdom, which is a BFI funded feature. But we're also supporting a film called Heart of Darkness, which is right at its early stages. And we put some money into that for them to do some live demo, because the production techniques of this film are using sand animation. And so they want to go to a festival and make a splash by showing people what it is that they're doing in a much more effective way than having that written down or, traditional publicity materials. We do lots of other things, but I think I'm going to stop and let us get into conversation unless there's anything you wanted me to.
No, I mean, thank you. That's really comprehensive. The only other thing I was going to say is, and maybe we can put this up a bit later, is where people go to. Is there one portal that you go to access this funding? Or brilliant. Thank you very much indeed.
Just put a link in the chat.
You have indeed. That's brilliant.
And I will also, just bear with me while I type, I'll put our general email address as well.
Thank you.
And that email address, I always say to people, might seem really impersonal, but it comes to every single person in the team. So if you email us, that's going to come to everybody and the right person should pick it up.
Brilliant. I have to say, as I said, I'm a consultant to Film London. I'm an independent producer myself, and I have actually applied for the Internationalisation Fund and got a grant, and it was really, really useful, basically to enable me to attend markets over the next year. And I was genuinely surprised about how simple it was to apply for, how much guidance was given by my sort of mentor, if you like, within the system, and how quickly the approval came through. And it's made a big difference to me as an independent for the whole of next year. Thank you. Oh,
well, that's good to hear. Our guidance is a bit complex sometimes, but we are definitely here to help talk you through it. And we also took a bit longer to assess this year because we were heavily oversubscribed, but we'll always try and explain to you why things are taking a long time, and we try to be communicative.
Thank you. Anna, Mansi, tax credits, cultural tests, certification in general. Obviously, this can be an enormous help to anybody with an animated series or a feature film. You can get quite a chunk of your money back through the system. And I would also, our tax credit, I think, sometimes gets a little bit of a bad rep, which genuinely I think is unfair, because I think one of the things that is a joy about our tax credit system is its simplicity, how quick it is to get approval, how quickly the money can come back. I mean, people have spoken about getting money back through, within 6 weeks. Yeah. And when you compare that with tax credit systems in other countries, which may seem on the face of it, maybe sort of top line numbers a bit more attractive, when you actually explain how this system works, people are genuinely surprised at what a great system it is. Anyway, enough of my sell. I'll let you sell the rest of it.
Thanks, Julian. Thanks, and also thanks from me for asking me to talk about the tax reliefs today. They are vital to all of our screen sectors. As you said at the beginning, we have them. We have a film tax relief was introduced in 2007. On the success of that, we then introduced animation television tax relief in 2013, high-end television as well, and then video games in 2014 and children's TV in 2015. And they're very broadly all similarly structured, the same rate of relief for all of them. To access the animation television tax relief, and I will talk about animation features in a moment, you have to qualify as British under the cultural test, and that's if it's a single project where it's just one UK company that's making the series, or the alternative is if you could be doing an official co-pro, and that could be when you're partnering with another country and you go through the co-production treaty route. And I think Andrew can touch on that when he speaks about The Amazing Morris. The majority of projects will go through the cultural test. For animation television, you have to have the UK company, as I said, that has to be responsible from pre-production through to completion. You have to be spending at least 51% of that budget on animation spend. So actually all of those elements that you go, and the majority of projects will be 51% animation spend. You can have mixed content as well. And that's where we would be looking at the 51%. It has to be intended for broadcast for the animation television tax relief, and that can be on the internet as well. So any of the platforms, and a lot of the platforms like Amazon, Netflix are looking at animation series as well now. If you are doing an animated film and it's getting a theatrical release, and even if it's a short film at a festival, as long as someone is paying to go and see it at a festival, then you can still qualify, but you'd go down the film tax relief, film cultural test route. There isn't a minimum spend criteria on that one, but it's a similar cultural test that you have to apply for. On where our team assesses the cultural test and co-production application, we're the first point of contact for anyone that's wanting to access the reliefs. So you have to get your interim or final certificate from us. The cultural test for animation television is a points-based system, and you need 16 out of 31 points to pass. If you're doing the animation film route, it's similar points test, and it's 18 out of 35 points. And it's broken down into 4 sections. For the animation television one, it's content, animation content, what you're seeing on screen, the characters, the setting. Is it a British or European story? And is it in the English or European language? And again, the film one is the same, except you get slightly higher points because there's a different weighting. You can also get points for cultural contribution. Is the animation series or film adding value through British creativity, British heritage in terms of content, or what you're seeing on screen, or diversity, and that's not limited to being British, and that can be on or off screen. So key talent from underrepresented groups, either on screen or behind, I was gonna say the camera, but behind making the content. And then practitioners, there's up to 8 categories where you can get points for different, for either directors, who's writing the script, who's creating the content. And those points, even if you're a very small company and you happen to be doing more than one role that might fit into one of those categories, you get a point for every category that applies. And those points are about you British or European citizens or residents. And again, when I was talking about the cultural content section, that is about British or European settings or characters. And there's an added bonus with the animation television cultural test. You can also get points for undetermined settings and undetermined characters. So, you know, a lot of the series we have, particularly aimed at children, they might be set in other worlds and planets. You'd get points for those, if that undetermined setting, and for the undetermined characters. So I would echo exactly what Annabel was saying. If you have any concerns about whether you qualify or not, get in touch with us. You can either email me directly, anna.mansi@bfi.org.uk, or our certifications@bfi.org.uk. It's, again, everyone sees that email and we reply within a day or so. I usually reply quite quickly, or I'll ask one of my team. Andy in our team is our animation specialist as well. So we're always very happy to talk you through a project and guide you through. And it's really important. This money isn't a fund. This is government incentive that they want you to have this money because it helps. It's valuable for the economy. You can get up to 20% of your budget back on making an animated series or an animated film. So it's really valuable. So yeah, I definitely encourage you to get in touch with us. The alternative route, instead of qualifying as British under the cultural test, is doing an official co-pro. And that would be where we have 13 bilateral treaties with other territories. Tend to do quite a lot of animation work with with Canada, but we do a few of them under the European Convention as well. And the European Convention is a co-production multilateral treaty that we remain a signatory to, because even though we have left Europe, because it's a Council of Europe rather than European Union treaty. And the basic principles of co-production, there's little nuances between the co-production treaties. Similar to the cultural test, there are nuances, but they're very broadly structured in the same way. But for co-production, each co-producer will put an amount of finance in. So generally, if it's 2 countries, it will be 20% minimum, 80% maximum. If it's 3 or more countries, then it will be 10% minimum. But you put an amount of finance in, and then you have a creative spend that is broadly in proportion to that creative spend. And again, we can guide you through those, through the projects and help advise on all of those areas. I've gone very, very quickly through the cultural test. I can normally do in a whole hour on one session, going into detail. I'll put in the link in when we move on to Andrew in the chat. I'm just slightly worried I'll end up cutting myself off Zoom, but where you can find to talk to us. And it'll give you more detail. But we'll also be at the Focus conference at the London Business Design Centre next week on the 7th and 8th, and we're doing in-person meetings and we're doing online meetings. So do get in touch with us there if you want to talk about your project and there's anything you're unsure of. A couple of things that I wanted to add. Maggie, thank you for flagging the London Games Festival. We do get a lot of projects now where they're sort of interactive. They could be an animated content. And a lot of the film festivals have VR and interactive elements to them now. So it may be that your project might not fit under animation, but it could fit under the games tax relief, or it could go under the film one. So always get in touch if you're not sure. If you've got something that's a bit different and mixed media, we'll do our best to try and see if it will fit into one of those tax reliefs. The Games Festival is running from the 1st to the 10th, and the games finance market will be 5th and 6th digital, and then 7th and 8th in person. And again, it's a really good opportunity if you've got something that's a little bit different, more interactive, where you can find financiers to help that will be interested in your project. With the tax reliefs, though, it's not about what we think creatively of your project. If you meet the criteria, you will get that tax relief back. And although it's sometimes referred to as a credit, I always call them reliefs, because you can get the tax relief during production. So if you apply for an interim certificate sort of at the pre-production stage, if you do 6 months worth of work and you've got another 6 months worth to go, as long as when you've done the 6 months of work and you want to claim on what you've incurred up to that point to help you go on to the next 6 months, you can do that, and you can set your own accounting periods and do repeat claims. I'm not an accountant though, so I'm not advise you on how to do claims. Andrew can tell you, as the experienced producer, how you should set up your claiming system. That's a very, very, very quick overview, but I definitely encourage anyone who's looking for finance, always think about the tax relief, and there are financiers that will lend against the tax credit out there as well.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Anna. I mean, I think the big takeaway from that, and I've come across people in the past who've said, oh, we wouldn't get tax credit because we wouldn't qualify on the points, because maybe we're doing a film with an American studio and they're imposing the director or this, that, and the other. And the thing is, talk to you guys. Don't make any assumptions. Talk to you guys and find out, because you, as you said, you want people to succeed.
Yeah, and there's a lot of projects where, you know, they may not get, you can if it's a wholly British set on screen project, you can pass the test in just the content section. But we have those other sections, because if you want to do a series that's set in America with American characters, but the underlying material is by British or European creatives, you're going to get points there. You're going to get points for where the cultural hubs where you're doing the work. You're going to get points for practitioners. You potentially getting points for creativity, diversity, and heritage. So that's where, come and speak to us and we can guide you through it.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Mr. Baker, moving on to you. We've heard the theory. How about the practice? When you're putting something together like Maurice, how do you draw all these strands together as a producer? How do you package the finance up?
Well, that really is $1 million question, or more than that if it's a big budget. So obviously the great thing that we have in the UK is the film tax credit, and you know that is the cornerstone of every finance plan you do, because you know straight away that you can work out based on your budget, based on your spend, what that money is likely to be. And so when you start looking at different structures and you start going, well, maybe if we did a co-production with this territory and we spent half the budget there, what does that mean to our finance plan? You can work it out on the back of an envelope, basically, to go, right, well, roughly, without the accountants going through in detail, we can make some assumptions that the tax credit will be worth this, which means we know how much more money there is to raise. Usually that tax credit is the first piece of any finance plan. And then it is really about how else you're going to raise the money. And for me, the first part of that finance plan really was a co-production. It's very hard to raise an entire budget from one territory alone. It's much easier if you have partners and everyone raises some of the money in their countries, taking advantage of their own tax credits, their own national funds, local broadcasters, sales agents, whatever it is. And so for my particular production, we raised about 45% of the money from Germany very, very quickly. We raised money from the UK on tax credits, and then we were able to bring on board Sky Cinema, in my case, to bring in some more money. And then you're still left with a gap. There's still money you need to find. And unfortunately, the life of a film producer, without the violins coming out, you have to try and find a way to make it work. You change things. You look at your budget. You go and you meet people who are high net worths, who are perhaps interested in being investors in the film. There is a constant process of where do you get the money from? How do we manage to make this work? And then you get to a point where you go, okay, it may not be the budget we wanted, but it's a budget that means we can go into production and it will deliver a film that we're really happy with. And then that's the point you pull the trigger and you have to really bring it all together, get all the paperwork organized, do deals with the banks, do deals with kind of, all the different parties that are involved. Because obviously one part of the finance plan is, do the numbers all add up? And the other part of the finance plan is, yeah, but when do I need to spend that money and how do I spend it if actually I'm getting paid on delivery, or I get paid from the tax credits after I've spent the money? So that's about working with banks and financing partners to go, okay, can I borrow that amount of money, please, against the tax credit or against the delivery payments to allow me to actually make the film and then trigger those payments downstream.
Thank you. You know, there's two things I wanted to ask you about that, because you very quickly said, so we raised 45% of the budget from Germany very quickly. How do you raise 45% of the budget from Germany very quickly?
Work with an amazing German producer. So that isn't my job. That's how brilliant it is. That's not my job. You know, I'm responsible for raising my side of the budget, and my co-producer is responsible for raising their side of the budget. And the thing that worked incredibly well for The Amazing Morris was that my co-producer, Ulysses Film Production, is a very well-established animated film producer. They have made lots and lots and lots of films. And so they have a track record, they have relationships with German financiers. And so in Germany, there is a network of finance that you can pull upon in terms of regional and federal funding, which meant that actually, because of all their previous successes and their relationships, they were able to go in and pitch the film and get financing pretty quickly. It was actually the UK that was dragging along, and I was trying to fill in all the gaps to close the budget. But for any project at all, you know, it's always about, you know, who is going to work with you, and the biggest and most important choice is who is your co-producer. You know, you're going to be working with them for a long time. I've been working with Emily now for nearly 5 years. You know, we still haven't delivered the film, so you know it's a long-term commitment. You know, you really have to get to know them. You have to understand what their priorities are, what their needs are on the production, and you have to be able to communicate very regularly. Obviously, COVID has meant that we've not been able to travel backwards and forwards to each other's countries. So we do Zooms like this, you know, several times a week, going through every element of the production. And that communication is absolutely key to be able to make approaches to success. And really, you know, for me, I had a lot of help from Anna and the team at the BFI. We went in and we said, okay, how do we make this work? What's happening with Brexit? You know, heads exploding, you know, because it was just at the point where we weren't sure, are we going to crash out? Is there a deal? Is there not a deal? You know, how does that affect things? And actually what was fantastic was Anna and the team were really good at kind of helping explain things. And we, even though our German co-producer at the time was going, well, you know, we're reading in the papers that there's no deal, and, you know, this is all going to go away, and, you know, we're not going to be qualifying. You know, we were able to get to a position where the German certification authorities, you know, confirmed very happily. They said, no, it's absolutely fine. You know, if you do it under this structure, the UK is still part of it. It qualifies as European. Everyone is happy. And so, you know, that communication and kind of actually asking and talking to the certification authorities is really important, because that is an absolute criteria for so many different things. And for example, we are producing the film and we're financing it, but our sales agent is based in Germany as well. And if our film wasn't a qualifying European production, they wouldn't be able to access some of their financing as a sales agent. So all of these pieces of finance are utterly dependent on having done the right structure in the first place and having the right paperwork and the right kind of deal structure that means you qualify. So having those conversations early on is really, really important.
Brilliant. And how do you find a wonderful German co-producer? Is this, you know, do you go through the directory of German producers and email them, or is this a relationship you've built up over time, or how does it all happen?
Yeah, it's often a combination of things. So I've got a co-development at the moment with Australia, and I met the producer about 5 years ago at the Children's Media Conference. And we kept in touch, and, you know, we had a chat about things. And then this year he emailed me and said, I've got a film project. Because I'd said, I'm looking for film projects, not so much into TV series at the moment. And he was very much a TV producer. And then he said, I've got my first feature script. You know, can I send it to you? And, you know, we'd been talking, you know, at every market, you know, and just literally going and having a coffee, having lunch, you know, how you doing? How's life? You know, but no specific project, just getting to know each other, really. And then, you know, after so many years, there's suddenly a project and I liked it. And we said, right, let's do this together. And, you know, we're now working together on this project and still getting to know each other because, you know, now there's something really concrete we're talking about. And we're talking about characters and story arcs and, you know, does this work? Does that work? And that's kind of really, really helpful because the more communication you have, the more times you meet someone, the better you're going to get in with them. And obviously by its nature, international co-production means you're not going to be in the same room as that person very often. So if there is an opportunity, and that usually means going to markets, very much like you were saying, Julian, you know, you're going to international markets. That is the only way to really meet people. And it's often a combination of chance encounters, going to, you know, speed dating workshops, doing networking, but it's also about being quite strategic. And if you're going to a market to go, okay, who are the producers I want to bump into? You know, look at the films that they've made, look at the things that they've done, and you know, engineer an encounter, email them in advance and say, can I meet you at the markets? Can we have a chat? But certainly don't expect that, you know, you do one email and then you have a co-production and it all works wonderfully. It takes a little bit longer than that and a bit more time and effort. And so it's always a case of building those relationships almost in anticipation of the projects happening downstream.
No, Sean, those markets, I mean, the CMC does international exchange now, which is, you know, you don't always have to be traveling around the world to meet these. There are an increasingly number of international co-producers who are coming to the UK, or you can go down to MIP, you know, in the south of France, if you're prepared to sort of rough it a little bit for surprisingly little money. You know, when I was first starting out, I used to stay in a very, very cheap hotel. It was like sort of 35 euros a night, and I had a 2-mile walk down to the Croisette every day. Yep. But you know, you can meet people in cafes. You don't necessarily have to go into the main palais for meetings and pay for registration. You can. Annabel's cats just walked past. You can make it happen. You don't have to have all these sort of financial resources. If you're that determined, you can do it.
I mean, you really can. And actually, you know, one of the big markets is Kidscreen. And traditionally, you've had to go to Miami, and it's a fantastic market. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. The people who are all over the world just coming to that one place for that week. The networking opportunities are amazing. But now, of course, it's all virtual, it's online. And so a lot of the cost of going to that market, your flights, your hotels, all those things, they're kind of gone now. So it's never been cheaper to go to a market like that. And what does happen is that UK TI or CMC or there's other funds will sometimes give you a grant, give you some money towards those costs. And it isn't usually very much, but I mean, I've got, you know, £1,000 to go towards the cost of going to Kidscreen on a couple of previous occasions, and it is expensive because, you know, you have all the flights and the hotels and things, and the registration fee is quite large as well. But it does make a difference. But I would say for all of those markets, it's important not to go and wander aimlessly, but to actually say, why am I going? What am I trying to achieve? You know, who do I want to meet? And do the preparation in advance so that the money that you're investing in going is actually worth something. Absolutely.
A couple of questions coming in from the audience. There's one from somebody called Fatma, which is possibly Annabel, aimed at you. As an international student stroke small producer, am I still allowed to apply for any of the funds explained?
For UK Global Screen Fund, the qualifying criteria would be that it's a UK production and that the expenditure meets the correct threshold for UK spend, which is something that either I or Anna can help with. Yeah, we only fund UK companies, so it needs to be a UK registered independent body. But I don't think we care what nationality somebody is if you have settled status or you're contributing economically to the UK.
Anna, you wanted to hop in on that?
Yeah, I mean, as long as you set up what I'm saying when we were talking about tax relief, you have to have a UK production company responsible for making the film or TV series. And you will find with a lot of funds, whether national funds like the Global Screen Fund, lottery funding, or regional funds, they will like you to qualify as British, which is the bit we do. But the actual production company element, you can set up your own company on Companies House, and it only takes, I believe it used to be 48 hours, and I believe it's only £12. But Andrew, correct me if I'm wrong, because I've never.
It's less than 48 hours now. You can do it online on these companies.
Yeah.
1999, you can have it one business day. It's very, very easy to do now.
Yeah. So as long as you have that UK company, then you can apply for the tax relief, and that, or you can apply for the cultural test. That'll give you the qualification as a British project, and then you have a UK company, and you can be applying for those the funds that Annabel has.
Yeah, I mean, I would be honest and say we do have a track record expectation. We have a producer credit requirement for a lead producer applicant. So always look at our guidelines. Really depends where you are in your career. If you're looking for early stage funding, I would direct you more to a BFI network or film fund even, whose remit is much more about developing and supporting new talent. Whereas we are in UK Global Screen Fund slightly further along the track, and we're looking to work with established UK companies or people who have international potential. So the likelihood is that you've made something, or you've got some relationships that you now want to leverage, and you want to grow more broadly or start expanding out internationally, but you have a bit of a UK track record already.
But as Maggie was explaining earlier on, some of her initiatives are for people starting off earlier in their career or middle of their career. In fact, maybe that's, go back and maybe talk to Maggie about something that she's doing. Andrew, you wanted to?
Yeah, just to say, if you're at the start of your career and you don't have the track record, you don't have the credits. The other thing to say is that most production companies are always looking for new ideas and looking for new talent. And so working with an established production company that actually likes your idea, wants to help work with you and develop it, first of all, they might have internal resources or funding to help move that along anyway. But also they have the understanding of the market, they have the relationships with broadcasters, they'll have an understanding of the criteria that they need, the kind of quality thresholds and things. And so I would say that certainly you can go down the route of financing things as an individual, but if you are wanting to get a television series away or a feature film, then it would be much, much better at an early stage in your career to work with an established company.
Just add, there's no, for the qualifying for the tax relief, you don't have to have a track record, and you can be doing shorts as well, as long as they're intended for theatrical release. If it's, like I said, at a festival, even if it's packaged up with other shorts. So as long as the audience is paying for it, you can apply. And we're not looking at it creatively. You just need to be able to qualify for the cultural test and meet the other criteria.
And sorry, Maggie, go on.
So I was just thinking, it's, when we all used to travel and go to festivals and all that stuff, and perhaps it'll open up again, who knows? But the British Council was always very helpful, particularly with, those younger, well, they're not always younger, they could be any age to be early career filmmaker and animator. And if you got into one of the festivals that they recognise, I think they had about 60 festivals, and you're premiering your work there, or you're in competition, I think it was. I'd have to check it out again. They would give you some support toward your travel, so they might pay 50% of your travel. So it's worth checking out what the British Council are doing, because they can sometimes help with resources that you just don't have, when you're just starting out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's a scheme that's aimed at short filmmakers, and then in BFI, the international department, also will now support producers. If you're selected for a top tier festival, they've broadened out their film export fund to support producers. So again, all of that thing that we've been talking about, networking, meeting potential international collaborators, there's support there, even at early stage, to start getting your face out there and building some relationships.
Yeah.
Thank you. There's one. I'll take one last question as we're almost running out of time. Andrew, this might be one for you, from Emmeline Davis. Investors typically want a return on investment. How has the pandemic and its effect on box office numbers changed your funding strategies?
Oh, very good. They're absolutely, investors want a return on investment, but it's also about the fact that it's not just box office. When a film goes out to market, it's yes, box office is a big part of that, but also each individual territory where you'll get an advance. Part of that is box office, but part is free television or pay television in that territory, or indeed eventually downloads or God forbid, even a DVD sale. So it's not purely based on theatric. So for example, my feature film, my UK deal is with Sky, and so it's hopefully getting a theatrical release, but it's not, the return for the investors is not about that. It's because Sky have paid for the film to be able to show it on their own network, which obviously is a kind of television essentially. There is obviously an ongoing issue, which is as box office is getting impacted across the world, and that continues, then there is an effect on the industry generally in terms of the number of cinemas that are open, the number of sales agents that are out there, how much money they can pay you, because you often have an issue, which is that they use the money they make on one film to help buy the next film or pay in advance for it. So without that money coming in, they're not necessarily able to give you as much money as you would want to put your finance plan together. But for an investor to come into the film, they have to believe in it. And if you have a sales forecast, then obviously it's just about where they are in that waterfall and when they would get paid. But it doesn't all have to be in the first 6 months or year or 2 years. Ideally a film will continue to sell over a long period of time. And so a short-term problem with box office, hopefully, shouldn't be a problem, but equally it is a real issue. Of course it is.
Brilliant, thank you. I think we should probably, we're just a minute over the hour now, so wind it up. I just wanted to mention two other things from a Film London perspective. We also have our production finance market, which is for feature films, which is run by my colleague Helena Mackenzie, and there's a big push to try and attract animated features into that. If you go onto the Film London website, you will find information about the production finance market. Helena, alongside Jordan McGarry, also runs something called Upstream, which is an opportunity for people with intellectual property at a very, very early stage. I mean, this could just be drawings or designs or a graphic novel that somebody's discovered that they want to turn into an animated project of some sort. And it's an opportunity to pitch that in front of people, potential investors, potential producers, to see if they can get that off the ground. So I guess that's about it. I'll go around each of you one last time and just say your elevator piece of advice. You've got 2 floors in an elevator. You're there with somebody who's looking. Maggie, from you first of all, starting an sort of entry level, somebody wanting to get their first animated short or mixed media piece, whatever it is, and that you've got 2 floors with them. What are you going to tell them to do?
I think learning how to pitch your idea very briefly is really important. Learning how, and it coming from your own voice, not trying to be somebody else. You just do it in your own language, and you don't persist if they're disinterested. If they start looking over their shoulder and desperate to get out and pressing every button on the lift, you don't dash after them, but you learn just those few words to entice somebody and hope that they bite, and do it in your own voice. Thank you. Anna, how about you?
Always consider the tax relief. It's you don't have to have the creative. It is not about the creativity. If you qualify and come and ask us for advice, we're here to help.
Thank you. Annabel?
I feel like animators might know this, but doing good things takes time. So be realistic with your expectations and do your research. There are lots of people at organisations like BFI who are there to help you, talk to you, demystify and explain how things work. Anna also is offering to do that for tax relief. So you're going to be taken more seriously when you do your homework.
Thank you very much. And Andrew, whilst I'm just searching for a link for Upstream,
I saw that.
I'll let you go ahead.
Yes, I mean, just to echo what Annabel was saying, which is really that animation does take a long time to produce, but it takes a much longer time to finance. You know, it can take years and years and years. And the thing to do is to have persistence and faith, and to keep, you know, evolving and keep talking and just keep going. You know, there is a huge market that wants animated content because it travels so well around the world. And we're very, very lucky in the UK to have, you know, such amazing kind of creative backdrop. You know, we've got such great kind of, you know, an industry, and UK content is in demand everywhere.
Can I add one more? One of the things in the pandemic was the animation sector and the game sector were much more resilient.
Yes.
You know, film and TV obviously had a massive shutdown within 2 months, but film and the animation sector was brilliant. Keep going, and we do a lot of our really good animation houses in the UK work with US studios and are demonstrating their talent. So just keep going.
Thank you very much. Time to sign off. Maggie, Andrew, Anna, Annabel, thank you so much for giving up your Saturday afternoon. I hope everybody in the audience has found that useful. We've been putting links in the chat, which I hope has got through to you guys, so you know where to go, who to speak to, what to ask. Best of luck. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Julian. Bye-bye.
Now.